Hello, this is Editor Dalton from the future, and I just wanted to open this episode with a little note that there is an audio problem in this episode, and that audio problem is me because I recorded with the wrong microphone without realizing it. However, I still enjoyed the content of the episode and did not want to cut it over that. So, if this is your first time listening, know that the almost adequate sound quality you're getting right now is what you can normally expect, not the crap you're about to get. My apologies for that, and I hope you'll still give it a shot, whether this episode or another better sounding one. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to yet another Geek Show, where we are asking you to please wash your goddamn hands. I'm your host, Dalton Lee.
But I've got my essential oils. I don't need any of that. I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I can't handle this shit. I'm your host, Jacob.
Oh, man.
I feel like you start every day of your life like that, Jacob.
Yep.
It was too comfortable for you to say it.
That's that hospital life.
We're laughing, but that's serious advice. Do that. I mean, you should have been doing it already, but like, maybe do it for 20 seconds now instead of 3.
Man, you've been throwing your hygiene like disciplines in everything, because I know in our Shovel Knight episodes you're like, guys, you should brush your teeth. And they tell people to wash their hands.
I know that was released recently, but we filmed that like 8 months ago. So.
Still topical. Still pretty topical.
More so. Actually, I don't know if brushing your teeth helps protect against coronavirus at all. I'm not really betting on it.
No, but the essential oils do totally.
Okay, you guys have actual news podcasts to take you into dark places like that. Let's go to places that are literally dark places, because I've been playing the old school Doom games, Doom 1 and 2. That seg worked better in my head.
That works.
It's okay. We have Gwyneth Paltrow on the show today, apparently bringing her essential oils up, so it's perfectly fine.
Try this vagina-scented essential oil. Don't ask where I found it.
But speaking of hell, Dalton, your Doom experience.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so these games I missed out on as a child. I have played Doom 4. I don't know, people technically call it Doom 4. It's technically a reboot, technically not. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Who cares about Doom lore? And I love it, and I'm getting hyped for Doom Eternal, and we're doing other things to kind of celebrate that release and get into it. But I figure it's time I jump into these two games and see what the big deal is. Did either of you get to play these games growing up, or go back into them later?
I have never actually played them. I know that they had a big, all of them, I think 1, 2, and 3, and 64 about to, or the last one's about to release on the Switch, but I've never touched them myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've maybe played them a couple of times in passing, but nothing like significant.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're fun, but I don't know. It just I don't know, something about it. Like, I don't feel like I can sit down and play it and just kind of kick back. You know, it's one of them kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, my whole memory of it is that I remember like a cousin renting Doom 3 and me getting to play it for like a day on the original Xbox. I don't really remember anything about it, though, other than that it happened. And I remember, like, as a really young kid, maybe like 5, I remember like visiting an older friend that had a gaming PC and just seeing him play the original Doom for like an hour, but not getting the chance to play it myself, and being like, man, the Sega Genesis sucks. Look at this thing. So it looked great, but I never got to explore the matter further. Okay, we have to explain. We're laughing about the noise happening in the background of Jacob's home. I don't think you guys will actually be hearing it through the noise gate, but we are.
Yeah, it's. I've been
apparently can't contain ourselves.
I've been watching by by 2 computer screens, and I can see the gain on my mic, and it's not showing up, but I'm laughing just because I can definitely hear it.
I need to
I don't think the audience is hearing it. We're just easily distracted.
We are very
Maybe
easily
the
distracted.
deeper issue is that you need like a curtain behind you so we can't see back there.
So it adds to the mystery of what our audio listeners are just hearing specifically.
Oh, anyway, so I'm not real big on first-person shooters, but I understand the legacy of these games and that they kind of revolutionized and defined what first-person shooters would become, and I'm just really big on going back to important games and seeing, like, not necessarily expecting to enjoy it, but just wanting to know what the big deal was and be familiar with it. And besides, I'm playing the current games and loving them, so there's just a curiosity there too. So playing the first Doom game, I understood why it was influential at the time. I do not understand people still playing it today, is my hot take. I'm playing it and I'm like, I get it, but I'm not having fun. But I got to Doom 2, and here I'm lumping them into one discussion because there would be a ton of overlap in what I'm saying anyway. But getting into Doom 2, which is largely the same game. In fact, at release, I think it was often criticized as being like a glorified like expansion pack. The level design is so much better that I suddenly get it.
Okay.
And Doom 2 is actually still fun today.
Okay.
So maybe skip 1 and jump right to 2.
Yeah, because 2 is, like I said, they're still fundamentally the same game. You're still going to get the point. You're still going to go, oh, okay, I get it. I see what Doom is. But it's all about the level design. I kept getting just kind of frustrated playing the first game, not actually having fun. In the second one, I'm having a blast, and I'm not done with it yet, but I actually do intend to finish the whole game. And for the record, I'm playing with a mod. I'm playing with, I think it's called GZ Doom, which is like an engine replacement. It's like moving all the assets into a new engine, and there's many examples of that, many different like ported over to a new engine versions of it to add modern functionality. And a lot of the time, I would maybe say that like it's not fair for me to look at it through that lens because it is adding a lot of things that I would be frustrated without, like proper widescrreen support and higher frame rates and like WASD controls that actually work like a modern first-person shooter. Because like the original game, I don't think it has like strafing, which we rely on today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it'd be so weird to play without that.
Yeah. So just little quality of life things like that. Normally, I would say it's not fair to look at it through that lens. But the big deal about Doom and Doom 2 is how moddable it is. So I think that is kind of part of the experience, and it is something you have to look at, is all the potential of modding it and the fact that they left it so wide open and that it can now be played on anything. It's actually a really big deal, especially, specifically for the legacy of PC gaming, not for first-person shooters in particular. Modding is one of the big benefits to choosing PC gaming. And so I don't know if this is the first game where modding was a really big deal, but it is a big part of its legacy, so it wouldn't be fair to ignore that. I guess that's all I really have to say about the games themselves, but that did lead me to the question of, are there any big important games or franchises that you guys kind of missed out on in their heyday that you feel like you should be going back to that you're not? I think it's kind of odd that I'm just now getting to them, even though I bought Doom 4 on release and loved it, and it is my favorite first-person shooter. Do you guys, I mean, maybe it's not a first-person shooter. Maybe it's because the game's important in a particular genre. Maybe you haven't played Metroid like I haven't. Something like that. Something that it's weird that you haven't gone back to and you probably should. You missed out on.
Go ahead, Jake.
I actually had I had an answer, and whenever you started talking about that, and I switched it because I realized I tried once to play this series. It's lauded by many people, and in fact, I liked this creator's most recent game that it's in my top games of all time. I've never played anything of the Metal Gear Solid series.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
And
That's a big one.
I saw all the videos. I've seen like there's countless games there. They're pretty easy to obtain. A lot of them are, I think, some are on Steam, weirdly enough. And there's a lot. You can just, it's not hard to go back and get a console with them on there. But I remember I tried to play 3, Snake Eater, I think that was the name of it. And it was meant to be, it takes place before 1 and 2. My friends would tell me it's a good way to get into it, even though you'll miss some references. Like you can go play 1 and 2 after and be like, oh, I get it. And I got really not too far into it. And I just got getting my ass kicked because I was not, it was the first stealth game I ever played. I just kept dying because I didn't realize like it's like you have to be stealthy, and I was like, nah, I can go beat the crap out of these guys and win. And I just kept like, again, I wasn't playing the game by the rules, and that's probably why I didn't appreciate it. But every time I've tried to like sit down and go into it, I can't. I know his storytelling and everything revolutionized that genre, and everything I love about Death Stranding. People always go, well, then you'll love Metal Gear. And I'm just like, I can't. I don't know if it's the breadth of the franchise, or just I'm not typically a stealth gamer. Maybe it's just the fact that there are like 13 characters called Snake and they all look the same. It's just really hard to like look. It's just, it's something. Every time I brought up, I've had people like, how dare you? The godfather of gaming. How could you? Like, it's never like, oh, we get it. It's always like a, how dare you walk into this room? How dare you speak to me without touching those games?
Oh, wow. Wow.
That actually is a big one for me, too, because, you know, when I was younger, I had an older cousin that was playing Metal Gear Solid, maybe Metal Gear Solid 2, and I've seen him play bits and pieces of them, and it's really all I've seen, and I've been curious for years and years and years. I was kind of waiting for more of the franchise to hit Steam, because there's been a few stragglers, but maybe it's possible to play them all through. I don't know where PS3 emulation is at nowadays. It might be possible to play the whole franchise. I've been curious just because of the reputation. I've said this about Kingdom Hearts too, of how crazy and difficult to follow the story is, especially when you start considering like side stories. I just want to take on the challenge of seeing if I understand it without having to wiki everything and watch hour-long YouTube explanation videos. I just want to see if I can get it.
Oh, good luck, buddy.
And all the farther I've made it, though, was that because I always start from the beginning, I have played the original Metal Gear, not for the NES, but for the MSX. And
oh, wow.
That's it. One day I'll get back there. Speaking of Kojima, I do want to play the Zone of Ender games and Zone of the Ender games.
Yeah.
So I have the second one on Steam. I could emulate the first. I do want to do that before I jump into Metal Gear. Death Stranding's going to be on PC here real soon. So, yeah, hoping to dive into that one too. Alex?
There's a lot actually that comes to mind. Like I missed out entirely on the Halo games, and I think I would have enjoyed them. But growing up, I didn't have very many friends, or rather, I had friends, but I wasn't necessarily invited. So I think I kind of would I was invited, but like I never really got offered to play.
They're like, get good. You can't play with us.
Yeah, because like I didn't. I didn't have a PS2 until probably like 2005, 2007, somewhere in that range. And then like I got the 360 towards the ends of its lifespan, same with PS3. So like I was always kind of behind with games. So like I think if like I visited like the Halo series now, I would probably wildly miss a lot of what the game really meant to like playing with friends and, you know, LAN parties and co-op, because like, for example, LAN parties are non-existent really anymore. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if it's necessarily that like I missed out on the game itself, but the entire experience, because I could go back and play Halo and beat them, but like they wouldn't have such an impacted landing on, you know, my mind.
Yeah, and they're all slowly releasing on PC now, and you have them through Game Pass. I've bought them on Steam, and so yeah, we can very well, probably will go through and play them together. But yeah, we are going to miss big chunks of it. We're going to get, oh, here's what the story is, and Either it'll be good or it won't, but we'll miss the impact of, getting excited to buy the game on day one and play it with your friends and getting really hooked on that game for a couple of years until the next entry. We're probably not going to understand playing them now why the multiplayer was such a big deal. I was there for Halo 2 when it was a big deal, and I couldn't tell you why it was a big deal other than it was the first game I had that was online or LAN.
It really did online multiplayer well.
The game itself. Yeah. I do remember, though, my very first experience being online ever with, I don't even remember if it was Halo 2 or the original Halo, but I remember visiting a friend. I didn't even know yet that online gaming was a thing outside of PC. And I watched them play Halo for a few minutes, and they're like, all right, here, you try. They hand me the controller. I spawn. I'm headshot and killed within 2 seconds.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, nah, this is dumb. Take this back.
No, thanks.
I think this is why you and I both don't really even play online multiplayer anymore. Is just because, like, we're not, like, we can handle our own in, like, the story or campaign and even against each other. But when it comes to other people, we're like, nah, fuck this. It's not even fun.
Well, yeah, I love co-op. I don't care about versus.
Because most multiplayer games I play now are like very chill games like Minecraft or Stardew more recently with my girlfriend. But because I wondered why I was missing that. And I jumped on Fortnite for a couple minutes again and I realized why I wasn't missing that. And I'm just not getting yelled at by someone who's half my age. So I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all.
Yeah. Well, that's like, for example, my wife and I, we went back. I know I talked about it before on the podcast, but we recently started playing Sea of Thieves together again.
Oh, that's nice.
And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a game where you're pirates, you sail the seas, collect treasure. You can upgrade your ship, but not in like a meaningful way. You can just get like different skins and stuff. It's kind of a relaxing game to play. But then there's the online stuff because, like, I mean, obviously, like, we're playing it multiplayer, but there's like other pirates and they can either be your friend or ruin your entire experience. And for example, I'm amazed that this is still a thing, but when we were playing, like, this dude was trolling us. Every time we'd spawn back on our boat, he just kept killing us, and eventually, like, working together, we ended up taking this guy out. But then when I heard him on the local like voice chat, all he was doing was just spouting off the most heinous racist shit. And, like, I'm surprised that's still a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
It is, and it's a thing that really affects my preference for single player games. That said, we could get a huge discussion out of this, so let's save more detailed talk about our experience with online gaming for another episode. Do you have another franchise you want to mention for the question?
Ooh, actually, I got because with the new one coming out, like, we actually talked about this before we started recording. Half-Life Alyx is coming out soon, and I was very late to the Half-Life games, to where when I played it, I remember I offended a couple people because this series I played for a little bit of the first one, but then when I was getting frustrated, someone explained the plot to me, and I jumped to 2, and I was partway through it, and two of my buddies in college were like really excited. They're like, "Oh, what do you think about it? You got to love it." And I was like, "I don't understand why this is important. I'm just walking around, moving things." And they're like, "But the physics." I'm like, "Yeah, they're like dated, right?" And I just got this very nasty 20-minute like breakdown of why I was wrong about everything. And then then we played Portal, and then I asked too many questions, and they don't talk to me anymore.
So it sounds like those friends want to die on a hill, huh?
Basically, maybe an hour of Half-Life 2 when it came out on a friend's Xbox and the orange box. And I loved Portal then. Half-Life 2 I wasn't falling in love with, but I did understand why the physics were such a big deal. I was really blown away by that. I just didn't care to keep playing the game because, back then I wasn't super into first-person shooters. I'm still not really, with a handful of exceptions. The current iterations of Doom being one of them. But I am in the middle of playing the first Half-Life, and I don't want to reveal my thoughts on that because, boy, I do have thoughts. And yeah, I'm going to try to rush back through those after this little Doom marathon I'm on.
Okay.
So many teasers for future content.
There's a lot of Doom stuff coming, including technically the episode we're recording right now.
Here's an interesting one, though, that I know I talk about the series a lot, but Resident Evil.
Oh?
I pretty much only started with 4. 4 was fantastic. 5 sucked. 6 was okay.
Yeah.
If you did split screen, it was awful. 7 I never quite finished, but like the Resident Evil 2 and the 3 remake coming up soon. Like I played the 2 remake, but like I feel like it's definitely it's an upgrade, of course, but I yet again I don't think the experience will be as shining and bright as if I didn't play any of those remakes yet. Like I would love to go back and play the old school PS1 Resident Evil games, but I think I'll just have to settle for the remakes because that's just how the times are, you know? They were definitely a big deal for their time, but I think it's kind of lost in translation to now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's that curious part of you that goes, oh, I need to see where this franchise I love came from and see why this is important. But at the same time, am I actually going to enjoy playing it?
Yeah.
In those cases, I kind of recommend, and I might do this even though I did grow up on those games. I just haven't revisited them in years. I might recommend play them for an hour to get a feel for what they feel like, because knowing what they feel like is a part of their legacy.
Sure.
And then watch someone else finish it online if you're not having a good time.
Okay.
And that's close enough, in my opinion, to getting that experience, because you're already missing the part of the experience of, being there when it happened.
Yeah.
And experiencing the innovation and being able to be capable of, being scared of those kinds of graphics and sound design. Like,
yeah.
You're already enough degrees divided that what's the difference between playing the whole thing yourself or playing a little bit of it and watching someone else finish it? What's the difference, really?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Sometimes availability or like ease of access has a lot to do with it, because with some of the older, we can go into, we talk about it a lot, but Final Fantasy, recently, almost a lot of the classic games that have a big imprint are readily available on all the systems. While in the term of Resident Evil, I know the original one, which has been remade half a dozen times, is available, but if you go to find the original second and third, they are very hard to find on a lot of the mainstream consoles. I don't know if they're on Steam, because I'm not the resident PC gamer guy in the room, but sometimes I know people
say that Resident Evil and Final Fantasy are actually really similar in this matter, because Resident Evil has a version of every numbered entry, has a version of all of them on Steam.
Okay, that's good.
However, 0, 1, and 2 are all remade versions. 0 kind of barely counts because it's the GameCube remake from a handful of years after the original. So it is a really old remake, not a recent one. But there is a version of all of them available, even though those originals you're interested in looking back at, those aren't there. There's still a version. And Final Fantasy is the same thing. Every numbered Final Fantasy except 1 and 2 is on Steam. But 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe all of those are all DS remakes ported.
I think you're
to
right.
Steam.
Yeah.
the phone remakes ported to Steam, I thought, because they have that a very cartoony look. At least I thought. It's the same problem with Chrono Trigger happened for a while too.
The phone and DS remakes are more or less the same thing with a different interface. And then I guess all of the modern consoles have a big handful of the Final Fantasy games on them, but in the case of the pre-7 games, they are all a remade version.
Yeah, okay.
You can't... The NES games are not easily accessible anywhere, but some remade version is, and the same is kind of true for Resident Evil.
I gotta get on Steam more often.
Yeah. But those old school Final Fantasy games, maybe there's a difference here in that the old school Final Fantasy games were remade over and over again because in a way every port was a remake. So when Final Fantasy comes out on the NES and the Wonder Swan and the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance and the PlayStation 1 and the DS and like whatever, like they were all remakes. None of them were a faithful representation of the previous.
Right.
Resident Evil games have 2 versions tops, really, and the differences are much more dramatic than the differences between those Final Fantasy games. For Resident Evil, I think you get something out of playing the original Resident Evil 2 and playing the remake of Resident Evil 2. You get something out of playing both. When it comes to Final Fantasy, you don't get something out of playing all like 7 versions of Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right, I think that's the end of that discussion. Jacob, you had a viewer questioner. Questioner. That's
Questionnaire.
technically accurate too. Viewer questioner.
Yeah, I got a viewer pregunta, actually.
We have questions for you, viewer.
Which one of the
is
3
also
people
not
are you who are
language.
listening? Answer, please. Thank you. But no, yeah.
Why do you
But
stay?
But a buddy at work actually was asking about the podcast. Now he gave a listen, and he very well noted. He's like, you guys talk about a lot of gaming, movies, just very much like geek culture stuff. Is there anything that you guys nerd or geek out about that wouldn't be considered from that subject? Anything that's not like video games, movies, comics, superhero stuff or the like? And I remember just like staring at him going, no one's ever asked me that before.
Right?
Because no one's ever been like, your thoughts on Final Fantasy VII? Great. What do you think about the Glacier movement? And I'm like, not what I geek out about, but thanks.
Right. I'm going to steal it before Dalton can say anything about it.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. I mean, I geek out about music. I work at a local music shop. But it's not necessarily just about the music in particular. I kind of geek out a lot about the instruments and such too. Like, for example, I'm a fan of flame mapled veneered guitars, and what that is they take a piece of wood, shape it into the guitar body, and take a thin piece of maple that has like an interesting like flare pattern in it, and the way that they'll paint it, well, not necessarily paint, it's more of like a pigment or dye. They dye it, and that will create depth and dimension in the front of that guitar.
I need to dye it too.
Yeah, me too.
Oh no! Wow, that's a great passion. What are you eating right now?
Right. But anyways, yeah. Like for example, the way that they do like a sunburst on a guitar or any sort of like burst, I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about, where it's like a dark blackish color on like the edges of a guitar, and then it comes into like either like any sort of color, like a yellow or a green or an orange. The process for that, like it always fascinates me how they, get it correct to what they want, or I don't know. There's a lot that I don't want to like super really geek out about. Like,
yeah. So I was debating, knowing this question was coming, I was debating whether music satisfied the question or not, because on one hand, music itself is still, people don't relate it to geek culture, but it is still like entertainment. It is still just kind of enjoying the arts. And so I don't know, is it a different thing or not? We don't talk about music on the show much because it doesn't feel like a geek related thing, but
right.
It kind of is at the same time. But I think when you're going a step further and you're saying like, oh, I like to research how instruments are made, and like you have a pretty significant collection of instruments sitting behind you that lie off to my side. Like, yeah, I think when you're at the point of like working
I think
in
one
a
of those
shop,
instruments behind me is yours.
yeah.
Yeah.
But But
I still
yeah,
gotta
when
fix
you're
it.
at that point of like creating the music and really studying music and collecting the instruments, then like, yeah, I think that goes a little further than geekdom. I think that's a whole hobby of its own.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Sure.
I don't do like major repairs or anything, but like, say like an input jack's loose, I can fix that. Restringing, I'm not so good with Floyd Rose bridges, and that's why I don't really like that guitar that's of yours behind me. I still have to
You gonna
solder your
finish
ground
fixing that
onto
thing
the
one of
clock.
these days?
I still have to get it soldered. The ground on the dude. I had to rebuild your suspension system because like you lost your claw, your springs, and your screws, and I had to find parts that fit. And hopefully
It's
they still
taken you
work.
so long that I've just bought another guitar and got you in trouble over it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm waiting for that.
Oh no.
Yeah. Behind the scenes, I got in trouble at work for that one. My guitars, funny enough, slowly become a hobby fix project, and I just keep buying new ones.
Oh no.
Like there's 9 guitars on that rack behind me. There's one in the closet beside me that has needed to be fixed since I was like 17 or 18. And there's one downstairs sitting in my living room that I just recently bought.
Oh god.
That like I frequently just pick up and play because I don't know, I don't like coming upstairs to grab a guitar and then going all the way downstairs to play one. But that guitar in particular, the one downstairs, has a just I'm gonna indulge myself on this conversation, is a quilted maple top. Which is different than a flame maple top because it's not like straight line streaks. It's more like a blobby, like it's like swirl paint almost in a way, and it's like black and red, and it's pretty sweet. It's the first red guitar I've ever owned because I used to be angry at the world and just wanted black and pointy guitars and say fuck you everybody.
You know what? This, for lack of a better word, rambling about the details of like the guitar hardware, it really is kind of its own hobby to the side of it, because I've been, deeply into writing and learning about music and stuff for a long time, but I don't really care about the physical side of things. I don't really know things about guitars. I look into knowledge about the guitars themselves when I'm like feeling like I'm about to buy one, and then
you
I
ask
buy
me.
one, and then I wipe all that knowledge out of my brain. And I don't really. Because you ask me questions about my guitars, I don't really know a lot about them.
Yeah.
I know
Because yours was the
green.
LHM1.
I know this one's also green.
Dude, I remember
Plays.
more about your guitar than you do. Like,
Sure.
yours is the LHM1. It's got the translucent green. It's an Ibanez. It has Fishman 3s in it, the pickups, which are tons of sustain.
I know it's Fishman. I couldn't tell you which model.
I can't remember exactly what pickup model it was, but I believe this is your first guitar with locking tuners, and that Schecter
Yes.
I was talking about downstairs is the first locking tuner guitar I had
It's
ever
wonderful.
had. Is your active or passive pickups? I can't remember.
Both.
Oh, that's right, because you have the push-pull knob where it
Yeah,
has two different voices.
toggles.
That's right. Yeah,
Which was
where
a big
mine-
part of the appeal for
yeah.
me. I do know what that means, active
Yeah.
pickups or passive.
Well, yeah, I know
Oh,
you do
geez.
that.
Yeah.
That's the other
Okay,
interesting thing. Yeah.
Anyway, we're
Sorry.
diving too deep into this one. Jacob,
Yeah,
Jacob,
sorry,
do you have
guys.
an answer?
Oh, one other thing. Yours has the special rounded fret technology so it doesn't stab you in the fingers, and I hate you because I wanted that.
Jacob, do you have an answer?
I do have an answer, but before that, I'm not gonna lie. When you said like quilted, all I could picture was those quilted northern ladies from those old commercials making the paper towel like over a guitar, being like, "It's gonna play so well." Like that's all I could think of, and I was trying to hold back like a laugh because I know that joke dates me.
Sounds so soft.
The soft, oh, it's so soft and smooth. And what a good sound.
You know what?
See, my hobby took my girlfriend by surprise. I collect novelty snow globes.
Oh.
Like my grandpa when I was younger, he had this study on the second floor of his house, and it was just every bookshelf had like 3 to 4 snow globes on it, and they were all the ones that were musical. And I would just go up and spin it and just listen to the music all the time. There was something about how it sounded, like it was really comforting. And it's one of those things where no one explains it to you. So for the longest time, I just assumed every snow globe had a little music player in it. Until, this is sad, I was like 20, and I went to Hallmark, and I was just looking, and I flipped them over, and I'm like, are these just like shitty discount snow globes? What is this? And like the lady had to explain to me that they're special. And I've been going out of my way to just find some, because there's just something about the tunes, like it doesn't matter what the song is, that it's just really soothing. And I've always, and it's probably my pap. And one of my favorite movies of all time, it's one of the worst movies of all time, is Santa Claus starring Tim Allen. And his son gets that. It is objectively aged horribly, but the son gets that magical snow globe from Bernard the Head Elf, and he like shakes it, and it's like, oh, you can always see like when your dad will always be there near you when you have that. And it's sad, but when my pap passed, I got a couple of his snow globes, and I kind of had that idea that okay, like I have these, it's a memory. And I've just started to associate getting new ones with like something that's going on in my life. And my most recent one, I wish I didn't have it packed because I play it all the time. And I know I freak out my neighbors because the sound travels through these walls. I got a Harry Potter one, which the outside, the base of the snow globe is like the cliffside, the forest, and like the steps going down to Hagrid's hut. While the inside is Hogwarts itself. And when you spin it, it plays the na-na-na-na-na, like the Harry Potter theme. And I would wake up, twist it, and just go about my day. And it wasn't until I was doing laundry a floor down that I could hear it. And I was like, I have to be pissing off my neighbors. They're like, why won't he stop listening to Harry Potter? What is happening? It's been a month. There's only 8 movies. But
that's funny.
Because I always talk about games. That's all I do. That's all I do about in the group chat with some of my friends. It's that and the coronavirus. So I have to balance it out with like something nice. And we'll be walking past the Hallmark.
Introduce them to a new hobby called washing their hands.
Yeah, washing your hands with Jacob 101. Just fucking do it. It's not hard. There's sinks everywhere. Usually soap is also at the sink. Anyway.
Don't forget the tips.
Don't forget the tips. But like it's I've been with my girlfriend and some friends. We'll be walking and I'll be very serious and we'll walk past a Hallmark and I'll be like, oh my god, they got new musical ones in the front. And so when the lady will look at me and she knows me now at the one at the mall and she'll be like, we've got new ones, come on in. And I like frolic into that Hallmark like I'm like the like happiest person, and I will spend way too much time there. But no, honestly, it's like I'm rebuilding my collection because I let my mom keep some. Just because like I didn't want to move them at the time and go to college and ruin them. I was like, they are very old and they're very easy to break. But I've been trying to rebuild mine, and I've got a lot of Christmas ones because Christmas is my favorite holiday, and I love Christmas music. And I didn't know the Harry Potter one existed until my girlfriend got it for me, and I think she packed it up because I played too much.
But if the thought had occurred to you, like you would have known, right? If you thought to yourself, I wonder if there is Harry Potter snow globes, like you would have known the answer to that was yes. It just didn't occur to you.
What's bad is they're usually like really expensive, and I know if I look at it, I'm gonna see it and I'm gonna get it, and then I'm not gonna eat for a week. Because I got that for my latest, and it's just. Yeah, if you ever see some dude with spiky hair and Hallmark having way too much fun, it's probably me, and don't touch me, I'll scream.
So that does kind of connect with our answer in a way, given that your answer involved music, and the snow globes, I wouldn't go as far as to play them and call them instruments because you can't play them. It's kind of like if there's a self-playing piano, whatever they call those, except you didn't have the option to play it yourself. But some of the appeal has got to be the particular sound behind it, just liking how that sounds. And I'm sure there's synthesizers and sample kits that do that and whatnot, but there's something about the real physical sound, and it makes me wonder if there are instruments out there that are just the mechanisms inside a snow globe or a music box, except you can just play them.
Sorry, I'm like looking at I'm looking around frantically because I had a
Actually-
tiny little music box that I thought was sitting in front of the desk, but it's not here. I was like desperately looking for it.
This is actually kind of interesting. The way that music boxes work is it's just a series of gears that are attached to a cylinder. I want to say it's usually made out of brass that has little spikes on it. Mm-hmm. And when those gears start turning, those little spikes hit like what looks like a comb. Mm-hmm. And each of those combs actually play a note. Now, there's instruments that are kind of like that. I forget what they're called, but they're like they're attached to a block of wood that's sort of like ergonomically set to sit in your hands, as if like if your hands were like cupped. And
I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I have seen that. Yeah.
Either. We're all doing the motion, so hopefully the audience can imagine it too without seeing the motion. But we know what you mean. Yeah, I guess Dalton, that is the same sound.
Do yourself a favor. Do a Editor Dalton from the future and put the name of that thing right here.
Okay.
Just so that way, you know.
I didn't do that. You guys know that because you're listening right now.
I'm gonna laugh my ass off if you leave that in. And then go, Editor Dalton from the future here. I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
I'm still not going to do it.
Yeah. But let's
go back to the show.
There's other cool things though. Like I believe the instrument is actually called the hurdy-gurdy.
Oh yeah, that is that's really cool.
It's a mechanism that it's like a set of strings, and you like wind this gear, and it plays itself. There was an instrument that I did see. I don't even know how the hell this thing works, but like this dude made this contraption. It's like a giant pulley system
with marbles.
Marbles.
Yeah, yes. It was so cool. Yeah.
It was super cool. I don't know. I'm a fan of instruments. I don't always know what they're called, but how did I know what a hurdy-gurdy was? But not the little music box thumb smacky thing.
It's because of the name, because you want to be able to play that instrument. Someone's like, what are you doing? You want to do a real quick turn and be like, the hurdy-gurdy. So they'll give you like a nice little like, the what? And you're like, you heard me.
I'll tell you what though, man, working where I work, you see a lot of people, like we will buy instruments from people and stuff, or like people will come in with instruments. And this guy had a friend who handmade violins.
Wow.
And he brought one in, and it was a fantastic piece of work. The craftsmanship is really there. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm more of a fan of craftsmanship than I really am of guitars or music. I'm like, man, they put that together real solid. Like,
be the Guy Fieri of like guitar shops going back and forth and just being like, bam, look at how that guitar's made. Ooh.
So, all right, I think we've pretty sufficiently answered that question. So I wanted to acknowledge that as of this recording, we are a year from the date on which we first released any Yet Another Geek Show episodes. It was a whole bunch of them all at once. It was like 8 or 10 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because we had actually, we started recording them in like January of last year and then didn't release them until we had enough for like 2 months.
Right. And the idea there was that when you publish your show and you like show up on like the new releases pages of all the podcast services, if you have more episodes there, you get more plays there, which makes it more likely that you end up on other pages.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I not that we ended up being successful yet.
Time for some rebranding.
Not that you need advice from me, but I do share that advice with people starting a podcast. Record a whole bunch of them before you release, because it's going to get you more plays while you're on the new release pages.
Speaking of that, special thanks to our top 3 and only listeners, all our significant others. Thank you very much for sticking with us.
You think my wife listens to this shit?
I was going to say he's kidding. My wife would never listen to this.
Man, Bryony must have made like 3 accounts. That's so nice.
Aw.
Alex used to listen to the show, but he's stopped because it's not good.
Well, no, because it fucks with their analytics. And I want them to be as accurate as possible, even if that means 0. But yeah,
you know, it's true, because for some reason, like when we started, I've never had much reason to go back and listen because I'm the one editing. Why would I listen to it once it's published? But you used to not just like play them, but you would play them again to nitpick audio issues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like think of things to improve and whatnot. So I'd publish an episode, and a few days later, I'd be like, "Huh, we've had 20 plays in the last day. Are 7 of them Alex?"
And they were. That's the thing.
And now our stats are all screwed up again while I'm working on moving episodes over to YouTube and getting them posted on our official page, because then I keep loading up their Podbean pages to copy links and descriptions and stuff. So I don't know if I'm throwing off all the stats, and our YouTube stats are ruined because I'm throwing up like 4 old podcast episodes a day, and then YouTube's like, hey, no one's listening to these, so your average views per video are
1
even
minute.
further down the tank right now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I did open up my YouTube the one morning and I was like, hey, that's us. I just kept scrolling. I was like, there's a lot of
Yeah, there's a lot of these.
Oh God! For any subscribers we do have, I apologize to what I'm doing to your subscription boxes right now.
We're like, wait, we can hear you moving the mouse. Just hold on 1 second.
Well, it's funny. I wanted to talk a little more about Broccoli Bomber's history, and Jake has no idea any of this.
What now?
Yeah,
We've touched on some of it, but Jacob's not a loyal listener.
yeah. I remember
He was cheating on us with other podcasts, and that's why we had to bring him in closer.
yeah,
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. No. Listen, that was years ago, and that has nothing to do with the podcast right now.
All right, we'll save that one for that one's anniversary.
Oh, thank God.
yeah. So, moving on to Jake's favorite podcast, My Snow Globe and Me.
Listen, just because I have notifications on doesn't mean it's my favorite. It's just I like to know when a new episode's up.
And like every now and again, every day, I check it.
Listen, what can I listen to while I'm polishing my snow globes and listening to like my Harry Potter soundtrack without having my quality
Hallmark
entertainment?
Channel.
No, have you
I
seen?
had one of those sentences where I was real worried about how it was going to end, and then it turned out okay.
But anyways, the reason that like Broccoli Bomber did kind of start, I'm sure we've mentioned it like briefly, but to give Jake the history lesson, around the time that my mom had passed away, which is close to about 2 years now, I had started sort of like fulfilling the life is way too damn short aspect. So I started writing a bunch of music, and it eventually devolved into a bunch of video game tracks that Dalton had gotten interested in. And he's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we wrote a video game soundtrack to No Video Game?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we started like trying to write out a story to kind of like encapsulate the feelings of each individual track. And then he just one day texted me and was like, fuck it, let's just write a video game. And
because it was getting so much more detailed than what I had envisioned, right? So I was sitting at work and I was like, yeah, let's write a soundtrack to nothing. And I texted that to you, and you were asking me for more details. And I'm like, well, I think we need like a map of what this game is, just to like nothing thorough, but just to give us an idea of, oh, we need a town theme and this dungeon theme, maybe a few boss themes, this character theme. And then you started getting like, you started texting me like while I was at work for the rest of the day. Yeah, just novels. I got out of work and it's like 6 notifications. They're all just texts with more information. And at this point, I'm like, well, screw it. We're just, I have programming experience. Let's buy RPG Maker and just write a damn game to set the music to, if you're going to get this detailed about it.
Yeah. And then, I keep hitting my microphone. Sorry, Dalton, editor Dalton from the future. I apologize. But we started writing a story out, Wait for him to come back. What?
I think it's what happened to Dalton the one day. It just happened to me.
Were you just leaving to go watch my snow globe and me again?
Literally, like,
Is that what just happened?
It was like mid, like,
Sorry, our story was that boring.
no, like you,
Yeah,
like you
man.
were about to say like what you were talking about, and then it froze, and I went, "Don't add suspense. I want to know." And then none of you moved, and I went, "Fuck."
Anyways, so what did you hear, Jake?
I heard him. You were talking about the texts and how you're sending novels, and how I am like going real slow on camera, but that's about what I heard.
Okay, so we decided to meet with another couple of, well, at least another friend, and we were talking about workshopping this game idea, and it actually, like, I have like an index somewhere of like how the story was going to kind of start and go from there. But then we were also like, man, we have a lot of music that...
This is not an official game announcement.
No, it's not. That has been the thing that is furthest on the back burner. Because then we were like, yeah, we have this album that we wrote like 10 years ago, and then this album that we worked on a few years ago after that. And we also decided, what if we made video game cover songs and made that into an album? So...
Yeah, well, so I guess the thing is that, like, we were in, like, a high school metal band and wrote a lot of music for it that never got properly recorded and released. And since that band broke up, like, we've both regularly had ideas for albums we wanted to work on. I've always wanted to work on something more electronic, whether that meant, like, EDM or whether that meant, like, video game score kind of music. I've wanted to work on like an acoustic prog album, just several ideas that kept popping up, but video games were always kind of a part of it. And so we realized, hey, before we get onto this soundtrack to no video game project we're talking about, why don't we, and this video game we're talking about, why don't we finish up this stuff we've been sitting on for years? We went back to reminisce about it and realized, oh man, a lot of this is still actually
like it still
really
holds
good.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, simultaneously, we're not working so much on that original video game music right this second, but we're trying to finish those 2 metal albums. We're writing a lot of video game cover music. That's where I mentioned we have a lot of Doom content.
Yeah. We're actually workshopping that one right now. But yeah, I mean, it really did just start from like the passion of music and video games. I don't know. It's been a hell of a ride. That's actually why we took our hiatus back in, what was it, September, October? Was so that way we could really get down and work on the 2 metal albums that are nearing completion. We're hoping to get them out this year sometime, but it's just a matter of we're trying to keep up with like current events and
so many projects at once. And how did we get from wanting to finish that music to wanting to do a podcast and Let's Plays?
Because I want to say it's closer to 5 or 6 years ago now that you came to me with the idea, because you actually started falling in love with podcasts, and you said, I can do that, not by myself, but I need someone. And then you came to me, and it was specifically just the Spotlight episodes.
Yeah.
And I introduced the idea of doing a weekly one because we needed a little more personality probably inside of that. So that's where that came from.
Well, I think I actually suggested the weekly too. And the idea was I would keep going through these periods where I became fascinated with the idea of like logging all of the media I was consuming. So like maybe the first example of this was during DC's New 52 reboot, when I was reading a lot of comics, DC and Marvel and independent.
That's right, yeah.
I like started a Tumblr page and I was trying to read every New 52 comic. So like they were still on the first and second volumes, and I was reading all of them, and I was writing like 5-paragraph thorough reviews on all of them on Tumblr. And then like I got bored of that, but then later on I started looking at that 1001 movies to watch before you die. And I watched the first like 20 of those, and I was writing reviews on all of them. Yeah. And I stopped doing that, but would eventually like at least start logging them. I'd start using things like Tracked TV, Groovy to log video games, things like that. And so I don't know, I wanted to consume the media, but then have to think about it a little harder, have to put out words about it. Not because I think anyone cares what I have to say, but because I think I'm getting more out of the art if I'm forcing myself to sit and think about it.
Yeah.
And so Yet Another Geek Show Weekly became a place where I can express, here's my log of everything that I'm watching and playing. Now, that ended up being a little bit too much for the show because I would kind of overpower Alex and our previous host, Josh. I would kind of, they'd all play a 40-hour JRPG. I would watch 10 movies.
Yeah.
And I would come in and consume the whole show. And so now I write about things the show doesn't have time for on broccolibomberstudios.com. And they're still pretty quick, half-assed thoughts, nothing thorough and intricate. It's just me making myself think about it a little bit. And I guess that's still kind of what this show is, too.
Yeah, and I think like even before like this kind of stuff, I was writing covers myself and filming and doing video editing on them. And that's where I kind of fell into place with the Let's Play stuff, I think. I think we both suggested maybe doing something on YouTube, but I was the one that was like, okay, well, as long as I can edit it in time, I don't know, maybe it kind of comes back to that like hobby of, how instruments are built. I kind of get to see how like our videos are built, and like I get more out of the experience of doing it and creating it. I think I like to think of myself as someone who really enjoys creating or either that or detailing certain work, I don't know. So like I really do enjoy like the editing of our videos and stuff, which we need to start really getting into. But that whole like hiatus, most of it was me sitting at my computer and pretending to be an audio engineer, trying to get our stuff up to par. So yeah, I don't know. Dalton, you need to finish an album so I could fix it.
A few of them.
I need to fix it.
A few of them. Well, and our priorities on which projects we're focused on keep kind of jumping around too.
Yeah. So yeah, I know. I'll be the first to mention like, hey, we're working on music. Oh, cool. Where can I find it? Nowhere.
No one's allowed to see it yet.
Yeah, no one's allowed to see it yet. It's not done. I don't think it's great.
Alex, you've been telling me about it for 12 years. Just give me We built entirely too much hype around it at this point. We can only disappoint.
Right.
That's why Half-Life 3 won't happen.
This is your Duke Nukem forever.
Yeah. Cool.
That was a bit rude, Jake.
No, that wasn't. No, that was. I meant the timing. I'm not talking about the game I've never played. I meant the timing. Thank you for coming to the last podcast I'm on. It was a hell of a ride, guys.
Glad you said it so I didn't have to. Right. Oh, jeez. Oh. All right. So, speaking of that upcoming Doom content, thank you guys for listening, and watch out for our spotlight on the 2005 hit masterpiece, Doom.
The only thing this show and Duke Nukem have in common is the fact that we're out of bubblegum. Thank you for listening.